Now for something completely different. What if one of the fastest growing sports was one that you hadn't really ever crossed your radar? Or what if it was a sport that you had assumed, mainly based on stereotypes, movies, music videos, if you've ever watched the Dallas Cowboys, not only believed it wasn't a sport, but that it was actually detrimental and counter to the feminist fight for equality of women in sport. Not getting dirty, no real skills, wearing cutesy outfits, waving pom-poms, cheering on the boys. Bring It On the movie has a lot to answer for. Because this is competitive cheerleading, and it is by far the hardest, multi-skilled, empowering women's sport that I have ever participated in. We are definitely not on the sidelines anymore. We are the main event. Competitive cheerleading has over, you may be surprised to know, 10 million athletes worldwide in schools and colleges and club teams. Globally, it is a 96% female engaged sport, and there are 121 member federations of the ICU, which is the International Cheerleading Union, the International Federation, which is recognised by the IOC as the international governing body. And it's not just the typical Western sports, Western countries that you would expect that are engaged. Last year at the IF meetings, I met federation reps from Pakistan, Nigeria, South Africa, Chinese Taipei, Malaysia, Chile, Ecuador, the Philippines. And in the UK, there are 90,000 girls and women participating in this sport. That is enough, as you can see out there, to fill the Etihad Stadium almost twice over. And we're quite good at it too. We win a lot of medals, England, at the World Cheerleading Championships. This year we took over 400 athletes out to the USA and 70 entourage. We came back with 15 gold medals, 10 silvers, 7 bronzes across 6 different disciplines. In 2021 in Tokyo, cheerleading was voted in as a full Olympic member sport. We're not yet in the Games, but we are now eligible for Games inclusion. And it's already a recognised sport in the Special Olympics and competed in the Olympics. This summer, it will also be featured in the World Games in Chengdu, China for the first time. And I'm really pleased to say that not only are Great Britain going to be represented, but they're going to be represented by English athletes that won that bid. And as of March this year, it is now a recognised sport by Sport England. Despite the movie stereotypes, competitive cheerleading requires young people to be of all shapes and sizes. And according to some new data that came out from Women in Sport very recently, 45% of teen girls don't think they have the right body type to participate in sport. I had my own cheerleading gym for about 6 years, and I was told over that time by different athletes that in other sports that they'd been told they were too tall, too small, too big to participate, or at least to get to an elite level. But in cheerleading, when you are participating in stunts where you are lifting, throwing, being thrown, you need people of all body sizes and types in order to do the different skills. Athletes are trained to be powerful, to be fast. The emphasis is on strength and developing strong women. You are literally throwing and catching people 1 minute, jumping and tumbling the next, dancing the next. It's like an intensive kind of CrossFit for 2.5 minutes, but with humans instead of weights. It's competed in divisions from beginners all the way up to elite level championships with para and special athlete divisions, non-tumbling divisions, which are particularly engaged in by universities where young people from in this country who are coming to the sport relatively later in life may not have done any tumbling before, so they're kind of experiencing that for the first time. They're not necessarily going to suddenly start doing loads of backflips, but they can get involved in the stunts. And there are also performance cheer divisions which focus more on the dance elements for those young people that don't want to get so involved in the stunting side. It's competed in all-girl and co-ed divisions, and it's this gender parity that the Olympics and the IOC have said make it really interesting, as well as the fact that you can see it's very televisual to them as an Olympic to be included in the Olympics. I have a coach on Team England. He came to the sport through university. He had been involved in American football to quite a high level, and he says cheerleading is the hardest sport he has ever participated in. It's competed at schools and at universities. Yes, even Oxford and Cambridge have got cheerleading teams. And the most popular club is the type that we refer to as All-Star. That means it's a club that exists purely for the purposes of competition outside of schools or universities. In this country, in England, there are an estimated about 900 clubs. And they are a mix of community volunteer-led, kicks, through to businesses with full-time payrolled staff. One of our most successful clubs, Unity All-Stars, which is based in London, had 500 girls turn up to their tryouts last year. They were also back-to-back club world champions 4 times over for the Club Worlds, which is quite incredible. And our largest club in England, in North East Cheer, has 900 female athletes in it, and they have a full-time staff of 26. This is not a small sport, but it blows my mind because a lot of people may never have heard of it. Cheerleading, like so many sports, relies on the success of teamwork, communication, ability to work under pressure, and mental toughness to keep training when things go wrong. If you're on the mat and a stunt next to you falls, you need to be in that focus and that flow to keep going. It's one that I can personally attest to, involves a lot of trust. If you're going to be thrown high in the air, you certainly need to trust the people underneath you that they're going to catch you. We are building leaders for life. And here's a little glimpse of some of the other divisions that are involved in the sport. Cheerleading is fundamentally a team sport. That success or failure is never down to a single individual. It's especially powerful hearing from athletes who've come to cheer from other individual sports, like gymnastics, how many of them find cheerleading really refreshing and empowering because they're competing truly as part of a collective, especially during those formative years where their bodies and identities are changing. To be part of something where you are all synchronized and working together, there's a real power in that. And on the screen for our very eagle-eyed audience members, you may notice one of gymnastics' most famous exports to cheerleading, Olympic medalist Amy Tinkler, who was on Team England's Cheer's co-ed team in 2023, and she's now moved to Canada to be full-time with the Cheer Sport Sharks, which is a massive cheerleading program out there. She loves it so much. I believe that it is this physical and team qualities that make cheerleading offer something unique in the space of girls' and women's sport. Combined with its intersection with popular culture, fashion, music, it's an attractive sport to a range of teenage girls who may not be engaging in more traditional sports. And it's a huge growth sport in schools. With most universities, as I've mentioned, offering cheer, many PE teachers are now coming out having had their own experience of cheerleading and are going and taking those back into the classroom. For many schools, it is their most popular after-school club. Our flagship school for this is Hillview Girls' School in Kent, where they have over 200 girls try out last year for their after-school club. They've had to make multiple after-school clubs, multiple teams. And it's so big that cheerleading competition event providers are not just offering schools divisions in their competitions, they're offering entire schools competitions at large venues like Bournemouth International Centre, where there was one held last Friday, which ran, I think the first team was on the floor at 8 a.m. and it ran till about 9 in the evening, and they're done on a 4-minute cycle, those teams. It's a lot of teams. And while we are raising female cheerleaders in the classroom, we're also a sport with strong female leads in the boardroom as well. Competitive cheerleading in the UK is still relatively new. It's been going for about 30 years. And it started with some parents whose kids saw it on TV, who wanted to do it, who called some Americans, said, will you come to the UK and teach us? They taught them how to be cheerleading coaches. Those coaches eventually started competition event companies and education to create coaches to come to their competitions. And so this private ecosystem has slowly been growing for a number of years, a small but growing subculture. In 2004, the international governing body, the ICU, was formed, and in 2009, they had their first World Cheerleading Championships. In 2012, in this country, with no national governing body, remember at this point, this is just a private ecosystem with a growing sport and girls who love it, some of our larger clubs got together and said, why don't we form a unified Team England and see if we can go to the World Cheerleading Championships? No one telling us we couldn't. And so we did. There were about 40 countries that participated in that competition in 2012, and we came back with a 6th place medal, a significant milestone in England's international cheerleading presence. In 2016, the ICU was in the process of its Olympic recognition membership application. And they came to Team England. They said, it's very nice that you come to our World Championships and win medals and everything, but we need you to have a recognised federation, and it would probably be good for the country if you had one as well. There have been many attempts to form an NGB in England by competition event providers, which had not been successful because of conflicts of interest. And for the ICU and for us, we needed an independent NGB to create a safe development for cheerleading in our country. In 2017, a small committee was informed, and in 2019, I was appointed the chair of that board. The first thing I did was I went and I learnt as much as I could about governance, and one of the most significant things that I did in the process of all of the courses and education I took was to come to this event in 2019. It was a bit of a sliding doors moment. Some of the stories that I could tell you about the men and women that I met here, the connections that I made through this conference, and the way that they have helped assist the development of a new national governing body is absolutely incredible. My personal motivation for getting involved, having conducted some early data with our competition event providers, was that the sport was huge in its numbers, and there was an urgent need for safeguarding young people in what was a completely unregulated sport. While there was a huge challenge in essentially retrofitting governance onto a private existing ecosystem, there's also huge potential starting from scratch. And to be female-led as a sport in England with 98% female participation and about the same level of participation in our coaching workforce, the applications for our board have been predominantly female as well. In fact, 75% of England's board, SPORTCHEER England's board, is made up of female directors, 78% of SPORTCHEER Wales, 100% of SPORTCHEER Scotland, 100% of Northern Ireland, and 67% of the Isle of Man's boards. And I think it provides an interesting perspective and opportunity for us as a sport to demonstrate strong female leadership and what that could look like. Interestingly, in the USA, birthplace of the sport, only 33% of their NGB is made up of females. On the governing council of the international governing body, only 40% of that top table is female, and the current athlete representative for the sport is a man. You couldn't make it up. With females leading the way in England and indeed in the UK in this new sport, and it is still really a new sport, having only been here for 30 years, I feel really strongly that I felt very strongly that we begin to put governance and strategy in place as we do that with women and girls at the heart of it. That intersection of access and inclusion, safeguarding, violence against women, female health, anti-racism work, LGBTQ+ advocacy and disability inclusion can be baked in from the start. If we want to support a sport where the majority of the participants are girls and women, then we need to ensure the frameworks and guidance isn't just inclusive of supporting their needs to be successful, but it places it front and centre. Indeed, it was an experience I had here at Everything in Sport in 2019, where I had first just taken the role and I heard Dr. Emma Ross from the Well HQ speak about female health, that I sat there and thought, oh my God, we're not thinking about any of this. This is really important stuff. We need to make sure that this is baked into policies and processes as we move forward. As I said, our advantage in doing this type of work is that we are not a 200-year-old organisation trying to introduce new policies and ideas to a group of pale, male and stale regional councils. But our huge challenge, as I said, is retrofitting governance and compliance onto an existing private ecosystem. Our other challenge is that we're still not a recognised national governing body by Sport England yet. We are in that process. So everything that I'm telling you we've done up until now has been done by volunteers with absolutely no funding. And that includes taking 400 athletes to the USA every year for the last 10 years. I do believe, though, that our community is behind us, that they are ready for change, that they are ready for governance, that we're ready to go to the Olympics. And that there is some really exciting opportunities for this sport, both that are completely untapped, particularly commercial ones. I hope that this brief whirlwind presentation has given you a good overview of the sport of competitive cheerleading, especially if you knew nothing about it before. I sometimes feel a bit on the outside of women in sports events because we've got all women in our sport, but so it doesn't quite feel like I don't know how that works. But we are all here at this conference because we're all on the same team and we are all here to cheer each other on. Thank you.